Okay. A lot of times when you're mentoring somebody, much of that time you spend with that person is going to be in crisis mode. The fact is that they're open, they're willing to be mentored. Sometimes it's because there's something going on in their life. Now, we've talked a lot about the 4 goals of mentoring relationships and where we want to see that thing go. But, we want to see them find their identity in relationship with Jesus, and we want to see them trusting God and the authority of Scripture and all that. But a lot of times, honestly, it's just crisis. It's hard to get to that point, right? Because something's going on in that person's life. And so help our listeners understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think probably every single one of my mentees began in crisis mode, and that's why they reached out. Mm-hmm. Some of them are through it to some degree, mm-hmm. where they are curious about Jesus and they want to talk about things like that, but it's definitely like an all-consuming. There's no like, let's study this Bible passage together.
Right.
We're just addressing, there's a fire, we got to put it out.
Right. So you feel like you're really not moving toward those goals or intentionally toward those goals because you have to deal with what's happening in that person's life right now, kind of clearing away the crisis before you can kind of get on the pathway of intentionality. With
intentionality in mind, like here's where we're going. So you want to see that person through crisis mode. You want to see them come out of it. And so we still approach with intentionality. We still mm-hmm. have like a game plan. Here's where we're going.
Okay.
Maybe that's not where we're at yet.
All right, good. Well, we can talk about that game plan today. But what are some of the kind of crisis that, people that you've experienced, people coming to you, like what kind of things, are going on in people's lives that our mentors are going to run into?
Yeah, I think specifically for us, we deal a lot with the transition from Mormonism into Christianity. That's like our niche. But like, think about a time that you've been in crisis mode or that you've been in like this an emergency situation. And that if you put yourself in those shoes, like that is all consuming. It's all you can mm-hmm. think about. And I can think about different times in my life where it's been like, it is an emergency, and the people that have shown up are people that like that sticks in your mind. Mm-hmm. One example is like a car accident. That can be super tragic, and walking through all of the medical things that come with that. Just faith transition is super rocky
by itself. When you put in other circumstances in life on top of that, maybe, and certainly faith transition brings out sometimes the worst in relationships. Sometimes
and then
people
you enter into a new crisis,
right? Because it's a relational crisis of some kind. Yeah.
So that kids making crazy decisions can be crisis. Your house burns down.
Situational to circumstantial things affect you. Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that can come up that are like panic. But usually when someone reaches out to us for mentoring, the panic is I've left Mormonism.
Right.
And then there's relational. This person doesn't want to talk to me anymore. And what do I do when mixed faith marriages and things like that are hard.
Yeah, they're related, but they're related to where that person's at in their life right now, and that's why we're there to help. So in the time when we're dealing with crisis, we're saying I want to get to the point where we're moving forward toward these goals. But in the interim time, then what are we actually as a mentor trying to accomplish in that person's life? What's a playbook? Give me a playbook, I guess you could kind of say.
Yeah, you want to be a safe place for them. Like I said, when I've been in crisis, the people who've shown up, like you never forget that. And so as a mentor, if they're coming to you and they're in crisis, when we show up, they're never going to forget that. So we want to be a safe place for them.
Yeah.
We want to listen really well. It's going to be a lot less teaching coming from us and a lot more just like, tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And we're just listening. And sometimes that process of them verbalizing what's happening can be therapeutic.
Yeah, for sure.
And I am going to say probably in crisis mode, you might need to be more available. And that can be hard. But I think also remembering what is God's heart and the way that he loves sacrificially and how do we imitate that.
Yeah.
So if someone is in a crisis, like I'm going to show up for them as much as I can. So that may look like normally you meet once a week, but maybe you are meeting twice a week. Or maybe you say, hey, I'm going to actually open my home to you. You can come and eat here, or you can sleep here if you need to, if they're local.
Depending on what the need is, Yeah, the nature of the situation,
Right. Maybe they need help moving. Maybe they are, this is very real. Maybe they're throwing away their garments and they're just like, this is new and panic.
Right. And it's kind of a panic. It's kind of a big event, a big deal for them emotionally to do something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you just be there for them? Because maybe they don't know anybody else who can be.
Right.
If everyone in their circle is LDS, then you might be the only person that can show up for some of those. Like, here's all my books that talk about Mormon doctrine, and I don't want them. What do I do with them? All of those things can feel like crisis. And if someone's local, you can meet them in person and walk with them through some of that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the be available, but also...
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because I feel like a mentor needs to set some kind of boundaries. I think that it just kind of an open-ended availability may not be healthy in the relationship, and certainly maybe creating too much dependence, or certainly then the mentor might feel like bailing on the relationship sooner than later, whatever. So how can I be more available? And again, if it's local, like how can I help in practical ways, but still maintain a meaningful boundary?
Yeah, I think that's important. One thing I've done that has been really helpful actually is there are a few apps that you can use that are like video. So I use Marco Polo a lot. And that's one way I can be available all the time to them, but it's a boundary on my end because I can listen to it whenever I have time.
Right.
But they can reach out whenever they need to. And so that's been really helpful because it comes through as a video recording and it'll say like, hey, I'm going through this. And you're just watching it and listening when I have time. And then I can respond. But it gives them the freedom to feel like you're accessible.
Right. It feels immediate to them, and when they're feeling the tension and the emotion, they can go ahead and record that and send it. But when you have a moment, then you can listen to it. That's a great way to set a boundary. Say, don't just call me anytime, but send me a Marco Polo type message anytime. Yeah.
And then you can see them, like you can see their facial expression. You can also hear them. That's been really helpful. I actually use it with almost everybody. Just the local ones, I've been more available. Like, if they need me, they can call. When it's overseas or in another state, even in crisis mode, I'm a little bit less available.
Right. For sure.
And I encourage them to find someone there. Like, if they're part of a church, like, find someone who you can go to. And like, yes, you can text me. Yes, you can call and leave a message. I might not answer if I don't have time. Like, as a mentor, that is a boundary. Like, technology is kind of a gift in that way that you don't have to pick up the phone if you're doing something else. But
so, as I'm thinking about what you're saying, I'm thinking that our first two goals in mentoring relationship is, to encourage an identification with Jesus and trust God through His Word. And so really a crisis situation, how can I as a mentor respond to the crisis in a way that actually helps that person connect more in a relationship with Jesus and grow in their relationship with Jesus? Are there some ways, some things I can do that would going to help either point them that direction or nudge them that direction?
Yeah, I think with the intentionality piece, watching them for patterns and seeing like if they are reacting the same way multiple times, you can actually like take note of that and then bring it up and maybe help them find a more like God-honoring way to address something or like come out of unhealthy patterns and walk in in life.
Yeah, the crisis is there because there's some things that maybe that they're responding to life in a less than biblical way, and less than trusting God. Seems to me like just even how you do prayer in a time like this is going to help them potentially get more rooted in their inner relationship with Jesus. So how would you approach the question of prayer?
I would, with crisis mode, I listen really carefully to everything they share, and then I just spend time praying over them.
Okay.
And just like, it just kind of brings comfort, and they then see an example of prayer. So that it's like, yes, I hear you, but I can't do anything about it, so I'm going to point you to the one who can, and we're going to ask him to be there for you, even if they feel like they don't have words to pray. Then like I can do that. I can pray with them. And then just pointing them to godly tools and whatever tools you have that may be. Even like I think about like what's coming at me and what is my heart doing? How am I processing that? And then what's my response? So helping them process biblically.
So you're helping them process, like, how would I respond to this in a biblical way, so without being overbearing maybe or being unfeeling to what they're going through, but kind of nudging them in a different direction maybe, instead of just being angry about it. Maybe you should think about how God sees it or how God's at work. Or so godly tools. That's a great way to say. What does the Bible say about that? What is the faith community? How's the faith community going to help you? In that way. So that's really good, really helpful. So fact is, as a mentor, crisis mode is going to be often, potentially. Now, some people, if they're not in crisis mode, maybe they've worked through crisis mode before they got to us, or maybe their crisis mode hasn't happened yet, or whatever. But so often, we just want you, as you watch this, to think about think about what does God want in that person's life, and how can you be an ambassador for that? How can you be the under shepherd? We talked about it. How shepherds bring comfort, but shepherds also lead sheep along a path. And so that's really what we want to make sure that you are exploring as you face different crisis situations from people that you're mentoring. Thanks for joining us today.